Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. This is Thoughtful Nuggets and Pearls on Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sara Jane, and last minute, I'm delighted to welcome my sister Jackie.
Hello.
Jackie, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, always, you're always welcome, but I know you're usually busy. Right, the topic for this program is seeing the best in others. And I suppose the thing that was coming to me earlier today, I know I've decided to do this a long time ago, but the thing that was coming to me today was it isn't about being, the word was there and it's now gone, navvy about how people are. It's about having an openness and an awareness that there is something deeper going on beneath what you might be seeing. Does that make sense?
To me, it makes total sense. I think I have to admit, so I was a person in years gone by, you know, when I was that other self type thing, that automatically assumed people did or whatever things for not the right reasons, because I always made it about me, you know, and it was always about me. And to be quite honest, it's very rarely about us as people. Other people act and react and whatever else because they've got other things going on, as you've said, under the surface. And we don't know what those things are. And so I remember reading a book, and it was about, I can't remember what it was. It was something about do you know when you want somebody to do something for you and you've got it all planned out that you're going to ask them or you're going to put the hint out so that they'll offer, and that then if they say no and it messes up your plans, you think, ooh, you're a bit whatever, maybe a bit stroppy towards them. But the fact is that was only ever my plan, your plan, whatever. It was never anything to do with them, and they've got a life as well. And when I read something about this, and it said very bluntly, it's nothing to do with you. And if somebody lets you down because you wanted them to do something, that's not their problem and it's not them. So it's about, don't see the worst. So this is where it comes around to, because you might have thought I was going off track. Don't see the worst in them because they never knew you wanted them to do it. And they had something else that was more important and other things going in their life that you didn't know. And reading that, I suddenly realized maybe how selfish I'd been, because I made everything about me and my wants and my needs. And when people didn't fit into it, I potentially didn't see what was going on for them. And that led to a process of a lot more, but I've done enough talking now. So Sarah, you do some.
Well, no, because I was also thinking from a perspective of how I used to be in my insecurities.
Yeah.
And within our insecurities, and so I am literally talking from personal here, because I felt so insecure, unwanted, unloved, not good enough, and unlovable, so that I created the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 marriages behind me. And a few relationships. I suppose I didn't have that many relationships in the end, but that's beside the point. But they all came to an end because they got to a point where it was, okay, I created that finish to it by things that I possibly did or didn't do, said or didn't say, etc., etc., because I didn't expect things to last. So I created that outcome. And so that's another thing, that's another way of looking at it, is people are doing things potentially from the self-fulfilling prophecy, not that they really, I didn't understand what I was doing. I understand it now.
Yeah.
But I think that's that's another aspect to this. You know, when you look for the best in others, you bring out the best in yourself, which I think is an element of both what you and I have said.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that when I did what I did, whatever that was, I was coming from a place of such hurt and such pain that that's what I did to prove to myself that I really wasn't worthy.
So I'm going to come back in and maybe challenge you a little bit on that, because in each of those relationships, marriages or whatever, there were two people.
Oh, yeah.
And so therefore, anything that, yes, you might have done some things that made it a self-fulfilling prophecy and different bits and pieces. However, there were two of you in that marriage and you were not the only one that was responsible for it. And I think we were brought up actually to see the best in everyone. So even though I've just said what I said, I believe that we were brought up to see the best in everyone. And then because we made the assumptions that we saw the best in everyone, then when something wasn't quite as we had made the presumption it was, then we felt let down, disappointed and whatever else. And so I think this is a really, really huge subject. It's a bit like 10 balls of string all mixed in with each other. And some of the things that we say might sound like they're contradicting something else that we say.
Yeah.
But they're actually all relevant because every situation is unique in itself. And to me, one of the beautiful things when I heard this was the one that you were doing this evening, was that actually, if you learn to see the best in everyone, you can create that story and that scenario that means you see the best. But at the same time, you can be realistic and protect yourself by other ways that you think and do and whatever else. So you can still see the best in them. And it was funny because the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned it in your email this morning was, I remembered growing up as children, everything was quite routine and quite structured in a lot of ways. Yeah. And so our father would go to work in the morning and take us to school, and then we'd catch the bus home, and then, you know, mum would have snacks and whatever. And then at a set time, dad would come in and we would sit at the table and have tea. And on very rare occasions, dad would be late. And our mother's reaction was always the worrying that there had been an accident, that there had been this, that, or the other. So we were brought up a bit to be worrywarts as well, and to assume the worst in situations, not people. Yeah. So assume the best in people, the worst in situations. And I then, when I was in my marriage, learned that actually was so exhausting, because the times he was late were multiple and many, and that was really, really exhausting. And actually then I'd be a stressy mare when he got home, which didn't make things any easier. And so my assumption was always, I learned how to have a story. He'd met a friend, this was happening, he was helping somebody else, and it wasn't a problem because it was always a good reason. And therefore, when he came in, I wouldn't ask the questions, I wouldn't be stressy, and then it wouldn't cause the knock-on effects of everything else. So it was about mixing the combination of a situation and the person to have the best of both. Probably didn't pay off in the long run, but that's another story. but then it became that had a knock-on effect to other things. If I felt let down about something else, I would think the best of. So I would always try to create a better story in my head, because actually anything that we think about somebody else is purely that, our thought and not reality. It's not reality. We don't know the reality. We do not know what somebody else is thinking, why they're doing something or whatever. We can only ever make assumptions. So if we think the best, as long as it's not putting us in danger.
Oh, seriously, with the number of people I connect with, and every now and again, an organized meet may not happen, gratefully over the internet. So I'm still at home, and there's an element of being able to do some bits while I'm waiting. But I have that patience, and I've had people say to me, sort of, how can you be that patient? And it's just like, well, at the end of the day, and this is going back to what you've said, I don't know whether something major has happened.
Yeah.
And so if I go into grumpy mode,
yeah,
and there was one person, was it sometime at the end? It took months. We kept missing each other, and time zones in different countries don't help. And she said, it was just so amazing. You were so patient. And she did have things go wrong.
Yeah.
Family members, etc., hospitalized, etc. So, they are circumstances outside. And that's the other thing. Circumstances outside people's control.
Yeah.
We've got the situation we have in the world at the moment, and a lot of people using the internet. And so there've been some conversations. It's got to that time, it's likely to drop out. It's sort of, and it's just like, okay, fine. If and when it does, we can see what we can do at another time.
Yeah.
And that's what it's working with things. It's working with people. And I hear what you said about, your mum would go into worry. I don't go into worry because actually, on the whole, I just don't go into worry because it's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
But it's just like, don't get into any form of judgment. Something has happened, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I hope everybody's all right.
Yeah.
Sorry we missed each other. Can we reschedule? But I've had some really positive feedback from the energies I then bring to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's because I haven't gone into judgment, that they've just let me down. There are situations where it gets to the point of I've been let down once too often.
Yeah. And that's reasonable.
And that's when you go into the no, which is actually when people realize, and I've done a program on this, a no can be a much, much bigger gift than a yes can be. But that's not what this is about. So it is about, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, Wayne Dyer.
Oh, totally. And I think it's that perception. It's they call it something like, not pattern changing, but it's a changing thing. So it's about, imagine this is your picture, but if you change the background behind the picture suddenly takes on a different meaning. If you imagine it's a picture in a frame, you change the frame, it suddenly takes on another different, and actually our thoughts and the way we think about things are a bit like changing that background of a picture, which gives it a different meaning.
Different energy.
Absolutely, totally. And I mean, I'd like to challenge people. I mean, I remember my daughter saying to me once, basically, she was absolutely cheesed off with me. Basically, Mum, you turn everything into a positive and it's so frustrating and annoying. Can't I just be da da da? And yes, of course you can, if that's what, it's people's individual choice. But actually, when we think negatively about something, and if we have a perception, if we view somebody in a certain way that is negative, we are bringing that negative energy into our lives. Mm-hmm. And we are allowing our thoughts of that person to bring negative energy into our lives and our body and our mind and everything else. And I class that as stealing time. Mm. We are allowing that person, but actually it's not that person because it's our thoughts of that person.
We're allowing that person to walk through our mind with dirty feet.
Yeah, but actually they're not the ones walking through our mind with dirty feet because we're the ones who are in charge of the thoughts.
Yeah.
When I got it,
yeah,
when I finally realized that every single thought in my head was created by me because it was the choice I made to interpret something in a positive and negative, a downright blooming horrible or whatever. I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So if I choose to reframe the way I think about somebody, the different things in a positive light, it's not because I'm being a soft touch. It's because I don't want them to walk through my mind with dirty feet.
Yeah.
I don't see why I should give them any power or energy or control over me in any way, shape or form. And to be quite honest, excuse my language here, I think I was going to say something beginning with P. I think it cheeses them off.
Yes.
If they realise that you're not being negative about them. Because some people actually like to cause negativity in people's lives.
Because that's the pushing of buttons to try and feed off other people's energies.
It's not worth it.
And no, it's not. It's just like, do you know what? Just let that go. But then, okay, there's another aspect of this. When I was several years ago now, as a complementary therapist, we're supposed to do our consultation forms, take notes. And I don't take masses of notes for the very simple reason, especially with the people I work with, and if it's abuse of any sort, I don't take notes and I allow myself to forget.
Yeah.
Because while whatever energy you're holding on to within you, whether it's for you, whether it's for somebody else, you are creating a block.
Yeah.
And so when I was talking to another practitioner and I was saying, oh, no, I really don't make notes. And this is why I don't make notes.
Yeah.
And that person said to me, I make loads of notes. And I got the feeling that what I had said really sunk in about having and allowing myself to get. I've said things to clients and they've come back the next session and said, oh, whatever it was you said, that was brilliant. And I'm thinking, what did I say? And I've said, I've got to the stage where I say to people, please, I am allowing myself to forget because I care.
Yeah.
Because I don't wish to be a block in your moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's what we can do to ourselves when we keep holding on. This is what they mean about, your past. It's in the past for a reason. You cannot change it.
But you can change the way you think about it.
Absolutely.
And put a different slant on it. So you talked just now about your in your marriages and in your relationships and everything else. And I admit that in part of the way that you worded it, I felt like you were maybe, I couldn't work out if you were still blaming yourself or if you were just using it as an explanation.
Explanation.
Right.
That's no blame.
I couldn't quite work out if there was still a pull of well, it was partly my fault because, as in still feeling that fault rather than just, oh, these were how things and we can learn from it. And I think I've said before on your program, that I was in an abusive marriage, and for a long time, it's held me back in different ways and different things. But I can talk about the different things now quite coldly in a way because they are in the past. And actually I see everything that happened as a gift that led me to doing the work I do now, which I absolutely adore, and the focus and yes, of course there are always going to be things in my life that I'd quite like to improve because that's the process of living, I think, as far as I'm concerned.
Growing.
Yeah, exactly. Developing, evolving, making those changes and whatever else. But they don't control me. What they do, the power of them allows me to live the life I live now for the right reasons and to be empowered in the now, but also gives me permission to make choices and to say no. So actually the knock-on effect can only be good.
Yeah.
Within reason. I think yeah, but so I suppose what I'm getting to with the subject of today is I don't perceive him in a bad way. And when I think of him, I do not think of him in a negative way. When I retell it, I'm not retelling anything based on being that cow and that, you know, wanting to have vengeance and whatever else, and to, you know, to make me feel like a victim and him to feel like a bad. That is not who I am at all. Absolutely not. Because I believe there were things there in his life that led to those behaviours and those things. And I don't think you can pass the blame on those. And I know that there are maybe some women who've been in similar situations who may berate me for my way of doing that. But actually, if I keep the negativity in my life, it's not going to do me any good. And why should I give any more energy and power to it?
And I think that's just as it is. It's see the best in others.
Yeah.
And as the comment you've just made is, you know, there was obviously something in his life, a learned behavior, something that had happened. As with myself, you know, with the way I was, I didn't know what I was doing. That's why at the end of my second marriage, I went seeking to try and find out why I had been why I'd acted the way I'd acted. There was always within me, as with everybody, a very amazing and special being. As with you, as with every single person, it's for us to find that in ourselves. And if other people can help us to find that by getting a sense and seeing that, and encouraging us to find that within ourselves. But people have also got to be in that right space to realize that they can step into their own power of amazingness and specialness.
And it's somewhere where I have an amazing amount of admiration for you for the fact that you can do that. Because I have to be totally honest. I'm me, and I'm quite comfortable and happy with me and who I am. I'm not ashamed of who I am or anything like that. But actually, I couldn't describe myself with any of those words, because there is still a hang up to my childhood of don't boast, don't brag, don't da-da, it's not about you. And then from my marriage, it's not about you. You say the word I too often, da-da-da. I mean, many different things. But the thing is, at the same time as not being able to do that, and somebody might go, oh, but you need to, or you should be able to, or, you know, it's important. Actually, for me, it's not, because I'm comfortable with who I am, and I don't need those words. Those words leave me uncomfortable, and I don't have to feel comfortable with those words to feel comfortable with who I am. Does that make sense?
Yes, because the rest of us can see how special and amazing you are.
I think, but you see, even people saying something nice to me doesn't feel comfortable. You know, it makes me feel very uncomfortable. But I don't know if that makes any sense, because I wonder how many people maybe don't go on training courses or don't do something because some of the words that are being used don't resonate with them.
Oh,
so my suggestion is, if there is a word that's being used to describe a training course that you really would quite like to go on that doesn't resonate with you, give yourself another word to flip whenever you hear that word. And whatever that word is, or whatever that sentence is, the second you hear it, you didn't hear that sentence, you heard the one that's okay for you to hear in your life. And I think that's a way of them being able to do it, because it's not always going to mirror the language that you use or you're comfortable with. And that again is seeing the best in others, but seeing the best in yourself and allowing yourself to do that. And if that's a tool that works for you, then go for it. And if it doesn't, that's fine as well. You don't have to do anything.
Well, and that's exactly what these programs are about. thoughtful nuggets and pearls. It's just potentially another way of looking at things, because people use that word, oh, what do you want? No, I don't want anything. What would you like? All right, that's different.
Yeah.
You know, using the word service, and you and I have had this conversation before.
Yeah.
Don't put that word anywhere near me. I know what you mean, but that's not how it feels to me.
So exactly the same with when you use those words and whatever else. I know what you mean, and I have my own definition of it, but it doesn't include those words. So the same with being of service. So it is about that, and it's strange how even within a family, you know, so we were brought up in the same household, but different words have different meaning and impact on us. And so if that happens within a family, imagine what happens within people within the outside world. So I try, when people email me, I try to mirror back sentences that they've used. So I look at how they worded it. Now, that wasn't necessarily how I read what they'd written. And because I realise I might have read it differently to how they'd written it, when I reply, I use their words, not my words. Because otherwise it's a bit like Chinese whispers, because when they reply to me, they might use another set of words, then I use another set, and then you're far away from what was meant in the very first email. And that's the same with conversations in the office. Oh, did you hear so-and-so said this? And you just change one word and then they go and repeat it. And suddenly there's this big brouhaha because something that was said in all innocence has been interpreted through people changing the words.
Oh, and isn't that just it? Which is, again, what we've shared here before, is if you're not sure what the other person has meant, or if you're feeling uncomfortable with your interpretation, your understanding of what has been said, then it's ask the question, did you mean what I heard?
Yes.
This not is what you said, but what I heard.
Yeah, this is what I heard. Is that what you meant?
But you have to put it into your own words.
And
so this is all about seeing the best in others. It's, what are you hearing? What's the body language you're watching? What's potentially underneath it? And in so many cases where people are abrupt, may appear rude, insolent, and I'm sure there are numerous words that you could use. Could there not be a very scared individual beneath that?
Oh, very scared, very insecure, and you know, the brusqueness. So I mask a lot when I go out, and it's exhausting. And you said just now about not remembering because you don't take the notes when you have clients and things like that and everything else. I don't remember when I've gone to a meeting because I've got a mask on, because I feel still, you know, insecure and nervous and cautious and anxious and whatever else. But actually at the same time, I know my subject really well. So I have a faith and a trust that whatever I said was right, because I know my subject fairly well. But I put on a huge mask, and it's a huge effort sometimes to go out. Absolutely, you know, the planning that it takes and the different bits and pieces. And that, I said earlier, I'd like to change some things. You know, I'm comfortable with who I am, and I'm actually comfortable in that. I'm comfortable with the fact that those are some of the things I struggle with. I don't need to beat myself up about them. They just are part of me. There's no problem with that. If anybody else thinks that's a problem, that's their problem, not mine. But they are some of the things that I would quite like to learn to be able to change. Does that make sense? But I think where I was going with that in a way was, I saw that advert on the television the other day about, and it's the woman with the red hair, and in her works, her pink hair, and in her work like assessment, you know, how her key performance, her boss had put something down, so she'd left her job. But basically the reaction is implying that because the woman had her pink hair, somebody thought less of her because she had pink hair. What difference does it make? But how many of us in all reality can be honest and say that we don't inadvertently, subconsciously judge people based on the way they look, their accent, their something, their this, that, and the other? How many of us can say we don't do that at least to one person?
Yeah.
We don't mean to. But oh my goodness, wouldn't it be wonderful if the world were just that we are who we are?
Oh, absolutely. And although this was called See the Best in Others, the person we have to start with is ourselves.
I think, yes, I agree. But actually, I think for some people, it's easier to start seeing the best in others first before yourself. Because actually, for some people, it feels uncomfortable to see the best in yourself. But if it becomes a habit to see the best in others, that will rub off and start allowing you to see the best in yourself.
Which goes back to that very first quote. When you look for the best in others, you bring out the best in yourself.
Perfect.
Absolutely. I think we've probably come to the end of this purely because we've been going just over half an hour. So thank you, Jackie, so much for joining us. And I am going to say this. Jackie wasn't too sure whether she'd be able to join us. She was going in for a coughing fit not long before we were due to start, because bless her, she's at home because she's had the virus and she's had the coughing that goes with it. So I am so grateful, and you're looking great. I am so grateful that you've joined me. Thank you.
I look absolutely knackered. Well, when Sarah says I've had the virus, the assumption is that I have had the virus. I haven't had the test, but the knock-on effects are exhausting, actually, and a bit lasting. Put it that way. So yes, they think that it's what I've had, but
so gratefully, as you can see, she's absolutely well on the road to recovery. Thank goodness. Which I'm really pleased about. And thank you for joining us. Next week, understand to heal. And I am very much going to be sharing this from my perspective. I mean, Jackie, if you want to join me, you're welcome to, but from my own healing journey. And I think with these programs, the more that I share and my guests share from their own experiences, the more I hope we actually help you to realize that that's what we are speaking from. And we've been there, we understand. And I can see the smile on Jackie's face. So I know that. So thank you very much for joining, Jackie. Thank you for joining us and watching. And hopefully you will join again next week. In the meantime, take care, be safe, stay well. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, Jackie.
Bye.